Welcome to this demo showcasing Microsoft SharePoint blob storage management enabled by Metalogic StoragePoint and protected by EMC Replication Manager. This video is one in a series as part of this EMC proven solution. In this demo we will show the solution architecture overview and then a video showing how we protected the SharePoint farm, StoragePoint database and blob stores using Replication Manager. We created a SharePoint farm with 4.3 terabyte of content databases on block tiered storage. There's also a 1 terabyte file share on file tiered storage. Metalogic StoragePoint is installed and configured in the SharePoint farm. The SharePoint blobs are then externalized with Metalogic StoragePoint. They are externalized to a lower tier of storage on VNX file. We should then show that the content databases are shrunk, thus freeing up space on a higher tier of storage. The 1 terabyte file share is migrated into SharePoint, which results in the metadata in SharePoint increasing due to this added content. EMC Replication Manager is introduced to protect the block and file SharePoint content. Replication Manager uses SnapView to protect the block content and Snapshot to protect the file content. We can see EMC Unisphere and we're having a look at protection, the LUN snapshots. We see there's no source LUNs, no sessions, no snapshot LUNs at the moment. Go back in and check on the file system checkpoints. No checkpoints. We have the mounts for the blob stores, but they are not protected at this moment. We're going to Replication Manager, look at the application sets. We have one for SharePoint. And if we look at the properties, we can see that the entire SharePoint farm is chosen there with all the content databases, search, crawl, and the query components. In the StoragePoint application set properties, we see that we are backing up the StoragePoint database, which includes the log file. So we have two jobs. The first is the SharePoint job, and it's backing up the entire form, so the index servers, the WFEs who are acting as query servers as well. We're not mounting replicas, so we are using SnapView snaps to create the replicas. And we're using the defaults for everything else. The StoragePoint job properties, we'll see that startup is dependent on the successful completion of the SharePoint job, and it starts straight after the SharePoint job, and it also uses SnapView snaps. And then after it's done, it runs a post script from the RM server. And we see the script here, which kicks off a shell script on the control station. And this is the shell script showing that it's giving instructions for the blob stores to create checkpoints. So this talks to Snapshot. So the first thing we want to do is create a new folder inside SharePoint in one of the content DBs, in this case the 200 gig content DB 250, and we're going to upload an image into that folder. And there the document is created in that folder. Now we're going to run the SharePoint job. This can of course be scheduled. So Replication Manager has a look at the environment, does discovery of all the devices, and starts the job. And now it's going to create the snapshots. So we can see the source LUNs being added in to the LUN snapshots. And the freeze and thaw is complete of the SharePoint farm. And we'll see all of the sessions created for the snaps. We can see a session for each of the LUNs. Once the SharePoint job is finished, it will automatically start the StoragePoint job. So if we look in active tasks, we see the StoragePoint job has started. And Replication Manager is preparing the storage to do the snap of the StoragePoint database. Which we can see at the bottom, the database and the log file. And the snap is done. So Replication Manager is completing that now. And after that it runs the post script. So the script calls VNX file side script and creates the checkpoints. And here you can see the 4 checkpoints being created. And we see that it's set up as read only. The content DB size is correct. And the job in Replication Manager completes. So now we've backed up that directory with a file in it. And we are ready to start restoring it after we delete it. So the first thing we do is have a look at the jobs. And we see, okay, we have the job, we have a snap view snap. The same in the SharePoint job, making sure that we have a snap view snap. And if we look in the application set, we can see that a replica was created for SharePoint and a replica for StoragePoint that we can restore from. But first we have to restore the BLOB store. So we want the checkpoint for RBS store 250. But first we want to remove that file and directory that we created before the protection started. So we're now removing it. Let's do a refresh just to be sure that it's gone. And here we can see the SharePoint SQL databases, of which Content DB250 is the one that we'll be working with. So RBS store 250 is the BLOB store, and checkpoint 250 is the checkpoint associated with that BLOB store. So we restore the checkpoint. To restore the checkpoint, we have to take a checkpoint of the existing BLOB store. Which we create there now. And the older checkpoint is now the BLOB store. So if we look at that second checkpoint we created, we'll see that it is a valid checkpoint that was created in those few seconds. And we look at the properties for the RBS store 250 that we just restored. We see that it's read-write, and it's available, and it's mounted. Now that we've restored the BLOB store, we can restore the StoragePoint database. We choose it there. And what we want to do is a recovery. That means to the same server. And we want to replace the existing database on that server, the SQL server in this case. We get a warning to say you're about to replace active data. We say yes. And the job's running now. And it replaces the database inside SQL. The StoragePoint database is now down to the older version that we backed up. Once that is done, we have to do the SharePoint restore, but to prepare for that we have to stop the timer service on all of the SharePoint servers. Once you've done that, you can restore replica. In this case, of course, we're going to restore from SQL only the one Content DB 250. I'm going to choose recovery and to replace the existing database. Replication Manager starts running the job. replaces the database, and completes. So we have restored the BLOB Stores, StoragePoint database, and SharePoint database. Let's do a refresh, and we see that that directory is back, and the file that we put inside the directory is back. Thank you for watching this video, and please watch the rest of the videos in this series. The white paper is available on PowerLink and emc.com.